Hello, my name is Connor Quillen, and in this review I am finally consenting to show what's inside my camera bag. I've had a ton of people ask me to do a review like this, so I've decided to finally do one. And I'm not just doing this to show you what's in my bag, I'm also just going to explain why I own the stuff I own and why it's important. And first of all, I'm a landscape and wildlife photographer. That's what I like to do. So a lot of this equipment is for landscape and wildlife photographers. You know that. Alright, the first thing I have here is something all photographers should have, especially landscape and wildlife photographers. It's a tripod. I have a Gitsu carbon fiber tripod, and the reason I have a carbon fiber Gitsu is that a tripod is very important to me. I use a tripod maybe 80% of the time I take pictures, especially landscape pictures. I use it a lot for wildlife too, when it's very far out in the distance and I need to stabilize the camera. And I would always get a carbon fiber tripod because it's so much lighter and a lot stronger than an aluminum or tripod or something like this. This thing weighs about 2.5 pounds without the head, whereas an aluminum one that could do the same thing that this could would probably weigh 5 times as much or so. I have a normal Manfrotto head on it. I didn't get a Gitsu head because it's just too expensive, and you don't get much more with the Gitsu head. It's just as heavy and just as durable and stuff. So a tripod is definitely something you want to consider if you're a landscape wildlife photographer, and for pretty much any type of photographer. Great thing to have. The next thing I'm going to do is open up this bag. And this bag is just one of those backpacks. It's a low pro. I'm not really quite sure what it's called. I could check that out. I rarely use this backpack. I only use it when I'm carrying all my stuff onto a plane or something. I usually, when I go out into the field, use my Tamarack Velocity Pack, which I'll be showing you in a minute. And I'll tell you why as well. And then these are a couple of leaf filters, which I will be showing you later after I get all my camera stuff out. Bag. And this is what it looks like inside my camera bag. I truly take up every nick and every space inside my camera bag and stuff it with stuff. First thing I'm going to show you the lenses that I have. 18 to 200mm lens VR. The best lens Nikon probably has ever made. It's so versatile, and if you wanted one lens to do it all, this is the lens to get. It's sharp, it's durable, it's got the best VR system, better than the 70 to 200mm that I have, and you can take pictures of pretty much anything with it. Very, very useful lens. And then this is a Nikon 12 to 24. This is the lens I probably use most out of all of them for landscape photography. You always want a wide angle lens when it comes to landscape photography. So that's what I use this for. A little blower, good for getting dust off a sensor, and great for getting dust off glass. It's much better than a cloth or your shirt, that's for sure. Next thing here is the big setup. This is my main setup for when I'm taking pictures of wildlife. The MBD 10 or whatever this thing is called. Makes it shoot 8 frames per second, useful for those fast wildlife shots. And a 70 to 200mm lens. You can also get something like an 80 to 400mm lens, but the autofocus is much faster on this. Good for birds and stuff like that and fast wildlife. And also the f-stop 2.8 is really useful for wildlife because I tend to take pictures of the wildlife later in the day or really early in the morning when there's not much light. Next thing I have is the 1.7 AFS teleconverter. Now this thing is the most useful piece of equipment I've ever bought. It allows my lens right here to equal the equivalent of 510mm lens, and with an f-stop of 4.5, which is still considerably fast. And it's still very sharp, allows me to get really close to the animals, and it's definitely a useful piece of equipment if you've got a 70 to 200mm lens. Now the reason I chose a 1.7 over a 1.4 is because 1.4 times, yeah sure, it gives you a little sharper result, but it's not much closer at all. I tried it out, this gets you much closer and you don't lose much, and it's pretty much just as sharp. The reason I didn't get the 2.0 is because it was way too flippin' big. It was like twice as thick as this, and it's not very sharp, and you lose too much f-stop, I think. Alright, next thing in my camera and bag, and the last thing is this camera. Now this isn't actually mine, but it is a camera I've been testing for a while, and I do plan on getting one for myself by the time Christmas comes up. It's an f100 and it's a film camera, as you can see. And the reason I want to get a film camera now is because I simply cannot afford a digital full-frame camera like the Nikon D700 or the Canon 5D Mark II. My parents don't pay for this stuff. I pay for it, so I don't think I'm ready to spend that much money on a digital camera. Whereas a film camera like this costs $200 used at Adorama.com, and you get same image quality. A piece of film is equivalent to 25 megapixels when it's scanned, and you get a huge viewfinder, which means you get a much brighter view, much larger view. The only disadvantage is that you can't see once you've taken the picture, and you have to pay for film. But all that really actually makes you a much better photographer. Film, since you can't see the picture you've taken, you're forced to really consider the environment, the lighting, everything to make sure that you get the right picture the first time. So that makes you a much better photographer, the film camera. And I'm actually going to have a completely separate review on the f100 and why film is really good for beginner, amateur, and professional photography. Another reason I'm going to be getting an f100 is so that I can finally get the beloved 14 to 24 millimeter lens. Yeah, I've been saving up a lot of money for that thing, and there's no way I could have bought a digital full frame and that lens. But by only paying $200 for a film camera, I now can easily afford the 14 to 24 millimeter lens, and I'm able to get that really wide angle and get just as good image quality with it. So now I'm going to talk about the filters I use as well. Just on the front of this 18 to 200 millimeter lens, you can see I have just a clear UV filter. Now that's a great thing to have on every lens you own. I have one on here too. It protects the glass very well. They're pretty cheap, and they really do a good job of protecting the glass. You know, the front of this UV one is really scratched up, yet the glass underneath it is perfect. If you get a lens, you definitely want to get a filter to protect the front of the element. It's much better to pay, $70 for a new filter than to pay hundreds of dollars for a new lens. And then for your wide lens, like a 12 to 24 millimeter, I have a circular polarizer, which is the next thing you should get after you get a tripod. It is the best little filter. I got this thing pretty late, and I really regret that. But this thing really darkens the skies to make them more blue, and it really brings out that saturation and that contrast. Great for landscape photography. Now I'm going to show you the filters that came in these two bags. Now they're called leaf filters, and what they are is they're graduated neutral density filters. First they come with a mount and one of these things, and as you can see it has a dark side and a clear side. And what this does is you take your lens, I use it most on the 12 to 24 of course, because these are meant for landscape photography. You screw it into the front just like any normal filter mount. Then you take this and you just slide it right in like that, and you've got your neutral density filter. What this is useful for is you take the dark side of the filter and you put it over something that's very bright, and then the clear side of the filter you put over something that's dark. This way it neutralizes the photo and gives you a really wide dynamic range. Finally, the last thing I'm going to show you is the bag I use 99% of the time, the Tamrac Velocity 7-pack. Why I love this bag so much is that I simply carry it like this, just like a side bag, and I can access my stuff quickly and easily. So I have my camera right here. You can simply just slide it in, bring it over my back and go, and then when I need it, I'll put it around, pull it out, I'm ready to take a picture. And if I need to switch a lens, all I need to do is take this off, reach into my bag, pull one out, and switch them out. It's easy like that, and it's very useful for when I'm taking pictures of wildlife and landscape at the same time. Much more useful than a backpack at least. Alright, that's all my equipment.